this view, this live view. That will be so helpful. I hope everyone has their drink sorted. We'll be here for some time. There will also be a catalogue if anyone's interested to see all the views and all the works live and in a document. So thank you so much for tuning in. Some people have already messaged they can hear me okay, so we'll start soon. Just a few people we're waiting to join. Thank you so much for joining. Hi everyone, welcome this evening. As I said before, I hope you have some drinks or some snacks to join me this evening. There's also going to be a 6-minute video launching 2 hours after this event, which is great with none of me involved, just the actual gallery and the exhibition with some background music. So if you'd like to view the exhibition just in your own time in a shortened version, that will also be available after this show. So thank you so much for joining. Hi everyone. And there's also a link underneath this video, which or live stream we'll call it, which will have the link to the same exhibition, but just a show without me. So it's just a shortened video. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining again. Thank you. So this virtual exhibition has been in plan for quite some time, but let's hope you're all enjoying today and welcome. Well, as a whole, thank you so much for joining and welcome to this virtual exhibition Dipped into Sea. As we wait for a couple of minutes for everyone to join, I will just introduce myself. For the people who don't know me, my name's Laura Metcalf. I'm a British-Hungarian artist. I studied fine art at Arts University Bournemouth in the UK some time ago. My personal style developed during my university years, where I decided to paint with natural matter and in my natural surroundings. And my practice evolved through capturing the transients in nature and making the ephemeral permanent. And the works you'll see today are made by my human interaction with our natural surroundings on a one-to-one scale. So this online exhibition will showcase a variety of works with the same process, but through different styles I've experimented with throughout the years. So whilst we wait a few more seconds, I'll just sum up my practice as well. So my works are striving to re-establish the harmony with nature, while applying surrounded natural forces, materials, and energy. They can be based on direct physical connection with nature. And nature is not only the main theme, but also the portrayal attitude. Nature is a never nascenary fate, where we need to embrace nature to understand its cycle. My works are reflecting the existence, the fragility, and the beauty of nature, and its dependency of our care and solicitude. So I really hope you enjoy this show today. I am going to show you the first piece of this exhibition, which is called Jumble. It's going to be on this side. So just a little bit of context about my practice. So I try to capture the organic forms that appear in my works. Some are more recognizable than others. I always try to capture an element of enigma in my practice. I like to keep my work simple yet dominant with an element of the human touch. So moving on to the next work I'm going to showcase is called Crushing Waves Onto Land. And it's an important note for me to mention that there's chemistry involved in my practice. All my prints are made with UV sensitive crystals, so they react to the sunlight and then they are exposed in the seawater. So all the paper you can see here has had a history of being washed in the sea with all the solution and crystals I've applied beforehand. And you can see in this particular work, the tones have changed. And this is from the intensity of the sunlight and also the reaction to the sand with the sunlight on the paper. So the next work I'm going to show you is more of a dark piece, a darker toned, as in the background. I was inspired by the Catalan artist Juan Miró, and this work just speaks with its simplicity. It's very detailed in the sense that there's characteristical shape, but also I was inspired by the shade underneath water when there is like natural matter floating on the waterbed. So I just thought it was something to capture and something to raise awareness, which is not usually just overlooked. And I just saw that beauty of that transient moment of the shade on the seabed. And moving on to my next piece of this exhibition, it's my largest work. It's called Waterfall. And this work measures 148 centimeters by 56 centimeters. It was definitely a challenge to create this work, I must say. There's a lot of failure involved, I must admit, in my practice. Not all works come out pristine. My general challenges are just keeping the paper above the surface of the water, which is definitely a challenge. And with this piece, since it's so long, the water caught or got entrapped on the top of the print, and that resulted with some of like the size to like a bit like being pushed down on the sea, and that was just like an anxiety for me to capture. But also I managed to save this work. No harm was added to it, which is great, and it shows this dynamic motion, the start of quite a light turn, and it just reminds me of a waterfall, the power of waterfall. There's also a lot of layer added to my work. Like once I start to expose the print, I have to act quite fast in the way I present it and where I put all the organic matter. So luckily it ended up as a successful piece, but there were definitely some challenges involved due to its size, its complexity, and just doing it all alone, and also just taking it into the seawater. It's really fragile paper. Most of my papers are between 250 to 300 GSM in weight, so also that shows the delicacy of the artwork. Just to mention early on in this exhibition, the reference size, as you can see down here, is the size of the print, as in the actual artwork. So these are all original artworks, but imprinting the natural surrounding. And I just added a frame to showcase it in a gallery environment. So the size is unframed and it's the size of the work, and it's not in relation to me. Taller than the work, but that's just a side note. But on to the next work I'm going to show you. This comes with a story. I decided to create botanical works early on in my practice. During my university years, that's where it all started. I remember I had this idea that I would like this leaf, which was growing in the upper botanical gardens in Bournemouth. And little did I know I had to write a request to the council to be able to cut it just before it went into hibernation. And I couldn't transport it anywhere because it was so huge. I'm not even over exaggerating, it was around this big, by this big, so it was massive. But it was my dream to create a work with it. So I did a series of this transient gunnera, and some turned out darker, some turned out lighter. But this work encouraged me to go out in nature and print by the sea, because what this work is showcasing is that this is the land, especially like I was inspired by, because I was living by the sea at the time, I was really inspired by like borders and migrated plants and where the originals of botany and plants and flora come from. So Gunnera originates from Brazil, and but it grows in the UK. It generally is grown next to the stream, so by water. And then just another note I must say is that I used to wake up really early in the morning, around between 5 and 6 a.m. to gather like plant foliage along the coastline. I'm also considering myself like quite light sensitive, so I love the morning light. There's nothing more beautiful before the world wakes up to capture the light and to just the surroundings. And I collected loads of dorsal flora, which is showcasing on this side, and it shows that I have to mention that dorsal flora it comes from it's post-Glacial flora, so it's ancient. It just overpopulated the county. So I looked and did some research at the National History Society in Bournemouth and seeing where all these different species come from. And I was really, really inspired to create a work in that reflection. So yes, this piece was definitely a challenge. And in this particular series, on a side note, I created a diptych, so two of these gunner reefs on either side, and one of them got caught in the wave, and it was in November. And I had a split second to decide if I jump into the sea and in my clothes, I'll just leave it float away. But since it was in the series, I decided to jump in, and it was a very, very wet walk back to my house. Luckily, it wasn't too far, but still, it was quite unpleasant. But definitely, this series comes with a lot of challenges. But here it is. This is the solo transient gunner. Moving on to another series of my botanical collection, I would say. I think I'll move out of the screen here because you'd have to see it all in one. So bear with me. So I have this constant admiration to collect fragments from nature. There is this element of sensory impact on the viewer when looking at these different forms of delicate shapes. The white forms are effectively showing up against the blue background with accurate recognizable shapes of plants, and some are composed with others. My inspiration arises from small, delicate details in nature that might be hidden or overlooked. I'm also intrigued by museum collections and the process of ordering and storing scientific specimens. I believe I'm working in the intersection between art and science. My practice explores the theme of protection in both decorative and scientific ways. I try to encourage the viewer to observe and conserve the world around us. So, just zooming in on one side of the work, let's start with this one. You can see that I am containing this dual sense of our landscape. I'm capturing different forms, just capturing beauty in itself. And I just want the viewer to just look to see what's so fascinating in our surroundings, what's overlooked or not even seen. And I compose these transient moments in a sense. So that's what I did with this particular body of work. And it was definitely challenge to compose and curate it in a way, but I think it has its own harmony and each work just speaks for itself. And I just gathered foraged plant matter from early on, from my early walks, as well as wherever I travel. So these particular prints are all from the United Kingdom, and I used to do long hikes and travels around the Jurassic Coast, if you've been around there. So it's definitely been some history within these works and a lot of mileage in my feed, but here they are. And I was fortunate enough to do a research trip to Kew Gardens, and we can see on the other side of this piece, if we zoom to the other side, I did this research at Kew Gardens itself. If you've been, it's a huge botanical garden in the UK, and they have an archive section which is amazing. Let me move there. And I was fortunate enough to look at these species from the 1800s, different books about migrated flora species, what originates from the country itself, what has been brought in. So that research trip I took was definitely an impact to my practice, to my inspiration to see so many different species in one place. So that's definitely something which I admire and was very lucky to do. And on to the next series of work I'm going to show you. They're a bit different in style. They are my circular series, and there's also a research trip involved in this. I did a collaborative slash research trip at the Structural Genomics Consortium Laboratory in partnership with Oxford University, which was really fascinating again. And I had the chance to later on exhibit in the Radcliffe Science Library in Oxford. But doing these research trips there, I had an insight to use different microscopes and just putting different matter and looking at an insight into what the scientists are researching. And that trip really influenced me to create these like scientific samples of natural matter. So this particular piece called Microscopy, quite self-explanatory, was just grass under the microscope, and it was just really interesting to see the abstract formations, just what's found. And yes, it was definitely an inspiring trip and really pushed me to do something new and try to put more white on the pieces and just leave it quite simple but delicate. And also, as you press two slides on a microscope, if you presume or have tried it, the water or the moisture always like creates different patterns. And I was also trying to encapsulate that with this particular print. But moving on to the next piece of work, Distressed Ephemera in Visions of Two. Here I was playing with texture and symmetrical forms. The process of both science and art seek separate, they just seek inspiration for me. And the figures of consciousness from the ground of the unknown nature is another strong concept which I drive by and get inspired. So yes, here I took away from the work. So as I was creating this imprint with botanical collections I have, and also sand and soil I gathered, I was taking away. So it was quite an interesting process. Whereas this one, I tried to kind of create a sample, like a sample of the plant, and then a symmetrical mirrored piece at the bottom. So yes, this was also quite different, but I think it worked in it well in their own state and style. So moving on to the next piece of work. So as I said, I might move down. As I said, I did some research at the Natural History Society and Museum Bournemouth, where I discovered many migrant plant species. I was also really fascinated by the patterns and depth of detail, which I wanted to present in my circular series. So I've been moved by the colour of blue for so many years. And blue is the colour of the horizon, the outline of mountain regions, and at the end of the day, it is the colour of distance, solitude, and desire, and of course, the sea and the sky. So I remember there was this time where I went to Kimmeridge Bay with a lovely friend of mine, and there was this plant on the side of the cliff, and my father always said, "Do not go near the side of the cliff." But I have this vision still in my mind. There was this plant, I captured it with a photograph, and I wanted to bring it back to the studio and just think about this captured moment, how I can make it into a work. And there was this plant by the side of the cliff, and it looked, from my perspective, it looked larger than the cliff itself. And again, it just shows like how nature and botany is taking over what's already there, and everything's overgrown. And I was really fascinated by this moment, and I captured it in this particular print up a cliff, where you can see there's like sort of a cliff and a plant larger in perception. So yes, on to the next work, which I'm going to show you. It's quite different in tone. It's called Flying Leaves and Bubble Plant. I will show you. It's going to come. So Flying Leaves and Bubble Plant is quite different, and in the sense that I was experimenting with different exposure types, different colours, different textures, but I added some natural pigment in this particular one to have this like turquoise colour. And I have this sensitivity to light, which is reoccurring, and I talk about it quite often. But it's really magical how much light affects our surroundings, and it's not really it's not really spoken about. So it's often overlooked as well. So I wish to record these different forms and plant species in a frozen moment in time. So this also presents an element of delicacy and just capturing this moment with different depth and layers with tonal structures and plants. On to the next work I'm going to show you. Is called Pine and Diverse Woods. So I was really inspired by the concept of plants being evergreen. So evergreen symbolizes immortality and eternal life because these plants never, these plants retain their leaves all seasons. So it's really inspired by this concept. And the pine is one of the work which I was just inspired by its own simplicity. There's nothing to add to it. I was playing a bit with the brush stroke, depth of blue, this Prussian blue I use to enhance the actual symbol and also the contour lines of the plant. And with diverse woods, I kind of mixed up the evergreen and added some transient plants which are seasonal, but also was really inspired what evergreen symbolizes. So these prints are a result of capturing organic form and making the viewer discover these hidden, detailed images. And there's always something new to see in the works, and that's what I try to push the viewer to always find something new, something each time you look at my work. And on to the next piece I'm going to show you. This is an interesting one. It's called Eroding Land. Oh no, sorry, no, it's not. It's called Fragile Scutter in a vase and tourism match. So there's this depth of Russian blue I was talking about, enhancing the bold contour and the foraged plants. So I really want to encapsulate the sharp edges of pieces of work I showcase. So I'm capturing the impermanence of flora, and it's really fascinating to just see that beauty in itself, the works, how they just transpire through the viewer as themselves. And I just want to encourage everyone to just see what they see. It's very simple. It's just a plant in itself captured in a frozen moment in time. So especially in this particular one, you can see how different and how fragile the plant is. And again, you can't pick them or put it in a vase. These are quite sensitive plants in the sense that you can't encapsulate them for a long time. So this is a different species and different style of work I was showing. And on to the next work, which is another style I'm going to show, which is more blurred. These were actually first works early on in my practice I created, and I really wanted to show how far and where I've become, because these gave me an important role. First, I remember I really wanted to work with natural matter, anything sourced from our landscape, as organic as possible, just my lifestyle. But no, I really wanted to have it really just natural. So, but I didn't want to make it so specific of I am printed plants or I am showcasing different styles, different species of botany. So I wanted to create this mystery. Fog and blurred vision was showing this mysterious sense of our surroundings in this evening light when everything seems blurred, overlooked. You can't quite see the forms. And I think these work well with their enigma, their enigmatic property, and their simplicity of mystery. And the next work I'm going to show you is the interesting one, which I was about to say. It's called Eroding Land, but in fact, I was just trying to. It's kind of, I don't know how to say it. This is not an eroding land. It's a print or piece which is showcasing an eroding land, because if you've been along the coast of the United Kingdom, land is eroding, it's changing, the sea is crushing, all the cliffs are eroding there in their own time. But this particular leaf was found on another early morning walk, and I go usually alone. I remember there was this huge bush, and I was just really inspired by the different sort of leaves. It had really nice circular leaves, but there was plenty scattered on the floor. And there was one particular leaf where the snail was just eating it all around. And I was just like, that's mine. Finished its dinner, breakfast rather. And I'm going to take it back to the studio. So this leaf was nibbled by the snails. And I just wanted to show this eroding land analogy that, and I think it worked quite well. But I wanted to split it as well, how where land is might come to, and also like what's going to happen later on. We don't know. It might split, might change. I think this particular print works with it well with its simplicity and no detail in the white area of the work. Moving on to the next series of prints. These are quite different in size. They're quite large, as you can see on the dimensions. But I'm just going to get out of the screen here and let the viewers just get drawn in to the work because they talk and speak by themselves. So I'll just give you a few seconds to just observe and look, and I'll go and zoom in to the first work, which is called Clouds in Imagination. Okay, so the first work I'm going to show you is called Clouds in Imagination. And Eve Klein once said, blue makes the invisible become visible, and it's so true. So blue has no dimensions. It's beyond the dimensions of what the colors partake. So similarly, this is what I'm creating through the process of imprinting and traces and creating imprints and traces of our landscape. So making this object visible. And also whenever I was by the beach and I was creating these prints, I was really, really inspired by the different cloud structures and how blue sky helps to enhance the shapes and also just how the clouds look like in itself. So I wanted to encapsulate that, and there's a lot of human interaction. There was my hand movement. This particular print probably I think I was making it around 5 hours continuously, so it's quite there's a long duration to the larger prints I create. There's constant layering involved. There's also my interaction of knowing when to stop, because that's also an important rule. When do I know how much I need to interact with our land and soil and sand to create a work like this? And the other work is called Curling Waves. And this is also an interesting one. I was inspired by the curling waves in the sea that move according to their own momentum and their own destiny. So everything in this piece was just an inspiration of continuum. Now, again, I was trying to move my hand continuously. There's this artist who I was really inspired by called Richard Long. He's a land artist, a British land artist, and he works with our ground, and he made with soil and mud usually. He made these really interesting site-specific works, and it just reminded me of my hands as well, being moving around on the piece of paper as I'm creating the print. And also there are these traces of blobs on either side, again, just to show continuum and this consistency, which just happened during the waves crashing to the seabed. The next work I'm going to show you is Fading Away. And Fading Away is interesting because my aim was to visually put across the sensation of an encountered experience as a recording through my practice. So I embed myself in the duration of the works. I feel this Zen form of existing. When I create these works, I'm in a different dimension. I'm very specific, I'm very focused on what I do, where I put everything, how I compose my prints itself, and just the fact that I know that I can never recreate the same print ever again. So these are all, as I said, one of a kind, and really challenging to know when to stop and when to start and really act in its own duration of time. And it always starts to expose as soon as I unroll the paper, as I said, on the sea itself. So it's really, really interesting to just put my mind in this meditative state and create the works continuously. And on to the next half of the work I'm going to show you. The next one is called brushed seaweed. And this particular print was interesting because when viewing my works, the seemingly simple becomes visible and more detailed. The enhancement of brush strokes you can see over here show the painterly feeling, and working on paper is that marvelous feeling through the invite of play, exploring boundaries, and just seeing what comes out of my work at the end. Because all my work starts as like a browny yellow. So when I mix these two UV soluble crystals, the solution and the crystals become like a yellowy earth color. And then I put all these natural matters on the paper, and I obviously used some paintbrushes in this particular one, but the exposure time and the reaction to the seawater was really, really interesting when I was creating this work. And the work immediately turns blue once I put it in the sea, so that's how they are blue. And onto the last work, it's called Sunray. And I'm just going to step out and appreciate so you can watch the work. And so I'm interested in the idea of gathering and connecting organic matter, the element of time and the sublime and the beauty of the imperfect. And this is all presented in a visual abstraction. So there's this meditative nature to the work I'm depicting, the sun's power along the shore where the land meets the sea. I'm inspired by the ripple tones and the sun, what the sun creates on the surface of the sea. So there's always a natural erosion, there's also a natural involvement in my work, and sediments come off my piece. Some even have sand burnt into the work, which is really interesting by the sunlight. So when you frame the works, some have sediments on the bottom of the frame. This is part of it. I'm taking away something and from the surroundings and imprinting it. So you have to have this understanding, this connection to the earth and the land and the sky, which I'm trying to depict with my works. And the next series I'm going to show you are quite different in style. The first one I'm going to show you it was created by, I don't know if you've been, by doodle, which is an arch in Dorset, naturally formed in the sea, and it has a pebbled beach. And I was there with my cousin for quite a few hours, and I took I took 4 prints with me, and I said, right, whilst we're having our picnic, I'm just going to do some prints and make some work. And I did. And out of the 4 prints, I decided to showcase this one because one of them, right, out of all the, this is a huge, huge beach along the coastline. This beautiful arch in front of you. I'm sitting eating my sandwich, and there's a dog which runs right across my work. And one of them has like an imprint of a dog paw, like ripped in the print. But I remember so many people just said, just leave it like it is. Don't cut it out. Don't make the print shorter. So it also shows how dogs. People don't actually think about this, but there's so many dogs on the beach, and this one definitely made its print my work. So that was funny, but also doodle has its own like speciality about it, and it's just really a really special place for me. And the tones of the sea and also this print itself turned out much differently. So you can see there's that like dynamic motion of like seashore and the different tones, the turquoise, different tonal structures of blue involved, which is quite interesting to see how it turned out. And also, it's just these prints are a recording of a place where they've been made, and it's a collaboration with the landscape, and it's quite site specific. And that leads us on to the other print called Transient Moments. As you know, I used to live between Bournemouth and Budapest. Now I live between England and Budapest, but it was really special to me that I flew back home. I took some work with me, some coated papers that I created, and there was a snowfall when I landed, and I was like, right, I am going to create some prints. So I made this particular work, and I remember I started it in Hungary, in Budapest, covered it all in snow, constantly moved it around. You can see there's some droplets, it's quite a dark in colour. And then I took it back to the UK, and I took it to the shore, the coastline. and I washed it in the sea and it turned blue. And that's when I saw the different tonal structures, the different shapes come to life. And this is a personal piece to me because it shows this like dual nationality I have, this dualness between the two countries. This really, just shows my dualness. But yeah, and then the other work called The Velvet Snow, which was actually quite an interesting piece to say. It has this enigmatic property and a sense of feeling of the unknown. So this is a very rare print of mine, if I'm allowed to say that, because of the reaction. So I was fortunate enough one very early morning in England on the coastline. There was a snowfall. It was freezing cold, but I still got up. I still went for my walk, and I took a piece of paper and I imprinted with the surrounding. And I remember it was so dark in colour, and I didn't think this work will come out okay. And it's all printed with snow. It's in real life. It looks velvet. It has a really different 3D structure. There's so much to see. It's very dark, but then again, it has so much detail. And I just thought I was so fortunate to experience this really bizarre feeling of a snowfall, a, a beach covered in snow, and then putting it into the sea itself. But no, it was definitely a challenge, but I really enjoyed the outcome and this reaction, which led me to create. And lastly, in this series, I must show the path to follow. And the path to follow is interesting because it just links to my walks itself. I used to create in my mind, oh, I must go on a new walk, a new route. But I used to, when I woke up in the morning, I always decided to go on one route and then just decide how I come back. But it was always by the shore. And this one just shows this continuous walk I took, which was really interesting at the time, and also imprinted with snow. There's also this evolution through time in my work. Different forms and lights are visible. So there's also this feeling of almost like a magic property. So that's what I'd like to encapsulate. And moving on to the next work I'm going to show you in this exhibition. It's called, oh, sorry, I'm just... This particular work is actually showcase seafoam, both of them, which is quite fascinating. So spreading seafoam in itself, as you may know, during winter, the sea has seafoam lathered with different matter. And this was created on a sunny day in February when the sea created these foamy structures on the water. And what you need to know about seafoam is it's dissolved organic matter in the sea, which is churned up. And there's this element of chance whilst merging with water. So I took it all out and put it all on the print, which is interesting. But what's special about these two works that there's no central point to look at. So you can look anywhere in the work, but it just allows the eye to wander. And similarly, I just wanted to show this creation, this feeling of just gathering seafoam and putting it and encapsulating this moment in time was quite special. And this particular print, Linear Edge, has my human hand constantly moving to expose and create this abstract figure with these hidden, I don't know if you could see it well enough, these hidden seafoam. Whereas this one, the spreading seafoam, actually has this free foam which like exposed and spread on the paper during the exposure, and I kept moving it about. So it's quite different in style, but more abstract. And the next work I'm going to show you is called Walking Droplets. This is smaller in size. This there's also a reference size next to there. But Walking Droplets is, again, is a monochromatic work. It's blue and white, as you can see, but it's just a reflection of what's around us. And I called it Walking Droplets because I was capturing droplets in itself, but also the fact that it looks like a walking man. I don't know if you could see that, but it just looks like someone's walking. Also, this spread of water and creating it. This one was created with rain. Um, this particular print just spread and also evolved through time and changed its color, changed its shapes, how it dried, how the paper dried. So this is an interesting one. And the next work I'm going to show you is called Ocean Stars. So as you may know, well, all of us know, that the sky is so dark and blue, it's almost black at night, and everything just seems like a drop in the sky. And Ocean Star was just, I remember I used to spend lots of evenings with my friends along the beach, and the sky was full of stars, but everything seemed so blurred. And above the seawater, it was just like reflecting, and there was beautiful light involved, whether it's from the moon or from the stars. It just looked magical. And I really, really wanted to encapsulate that in this particular print, take that a moment away to see that reflection of the unnoticed. We usually see it up in the sky, but that beauty which shines onto the sea is something very, very different. So there's a reference size to the work here, but I decided to just enhance the size so everyone can see it better. But the next work is interesting. It shows a human figure, but it's called The Naked Mermaid. So The Naked Mermaid was an interesting one. I created these different layers on the paper, and as they formed, I move it around, and there's an element of chance and also nature taking over. But it turned out to be a human figure out of the blue. And there's this figurative recognition, I don't know if you can see it, of a lady coming out of the water. So it just reminded me of a mermaid being naked, and I decided to title it, but it's in its simplest form. I can just see that human figure coming out of this natural occurrence of this work. And on to the next work I'm going to show you. It's quite different in size again. It's called Rotational Transition and Radical Circles. So circles present eternal wholeness and timelessness. So the moon, the sun are seen as dots in the skies, and so are the planets inside and stars. So there's this sense of micro and macro in my work. Not many people can decide if this is huge. What am I showing? Is it something which has been enlarged, or is it real to size? And I've really enjoyed that mystery. And there's a concept of all-inclusive sense of cosmic unity in my work as well, this continuum and this duration of the human hand, this human energy just formulating and created, and also in rotational transition. To create these circles, I had this continuous moment of my hand. It was really, really interesting, and it's a recent work of mine, and it's definitely something which I tried to experiment with different recognizable shapes, but also keeping it very abstract, but still having this human element in the print. Next work I'm going to show you is called Current, and there's this combination of outline which implies that the work has this relation of the landscape, this constant movement of water. And I was really inspired by the motion of water. How that one time I went to Kinridge Bay, which is also on the Jurassic coast. My friend and I decided to go on a walk. And the tide was coming up, and it did say in the big signs that, oh, just be aware of the tide. And luckily, we were not far from the car, but still, it was just that notion of how nature will take over the beach in any minute, within 5 minutes. If you wouldn't have made that decision that, oh my goodness, the water is coming closer and closer, we wouldn't have made it, and we would have probably had to swim out. So it's just like this dominance, this strength of our natural surroundings, of water in itself, this current, this wave, which I'm trying to showcase in my work, is quite evident in this particular piece. But it's also quite dark. I wanted to leave it quite dark to show the different contour lines on this particular piece, and also at the beneath I was creating this sense of depth. Moving on to the next particular piece, it's called Catch Me If You Can, and titled it that because it has so many hand movements involved, which is quite different. My connection with my hands and feet always feels so connected when I create these works. So there's this link of therapeutic motion, how I touch, like the sense of touch, and how I touch sand and apply it onto the paper and move it about, and creating this exposure, this composition, this moment in time. And I just decided to call it Catch Me If You Can, because there's, whenever you just run in the sand or walk in the sand, you can see that movement, this evidence of the human being present in our surroundings. So it's really, really interesting to see how this work evolved through my human interaction with the sand. And there's also, this work opens a window to both the physical eye and the eye of the mind. So everyone, in my opinion, can see something different, or can see some parts quite deeper, or like more internal structures above, and then more lighter in tone below. But there's also this sense of the human involved. And the next particular print I'm going to show you is also much smaller. I might get out of the screen again so you have a better view. Whirlpool, Mystery and Reaching Out. So these show the fundamental connection to nature. They're never the same, and nature just never repeats itself. And I was just translating this transient captures moment in time of the landscape. In the center, in Mystery, you can see there are captured seafoam, and then Reaching Out and Whirlpool were a mixture of prints created with sand and also rain, different droplets of wet sand as well. So I was really trying to have the human involved, and also encapsulating these different shapes and showcasing this movement. And in Whirlpool, in this particular print, you can see that there's sand left, the sand residue has stuck onto the paper, and I think it was quite effective because it just shows the viewer where these prints or these works have been. So yes, it's definitely something different, but also there's more whiteness involved in these two prints on either side, but Mystery holds itself in its darkness. Next print I will show you is also quite different, but also personal to me. So this is the only print of this exhibition which showcases an animal. And as I said before, by the doodle experience, that dogs just celebrate, they just love this freedom on the beach. I just thought I'm going to create one work which really encapsulates or shows this, the dogs and this freedom, this happiness they have on the beach. Similar to humans, but they just don't leave litter, which is very, very good. So this particular print was definitely a challenge to create. Whilst I was walking on the beach or creating, some people, ask, "Madam, sorry, what are you doing?" But dogs just come by, some step on my work, some just, I can pet and run off, and I can just see this sense, this like freedom they have, which is lovely. And this link, or this work, it has a personal link to me, because it was my long dream to bring my late dog Millie to the beach, which never unfortunately happened. But I've always wanted her to have this sense of freedom and have this sense of happiness. So this is also a memory for her, how I just loved seeing dogs on the beach and their happiness. So yes, it's quite personal in a sense, but also quite abstract. I don't know if you can see if it's a dog. Just to guide you through, these are the two eyes, here are the nose, and then the two ears on the side. So yes, this is just a abstract vision of a dog. And moving on to another piece of print I created. So this work speaks again with its simplicity, and I'm really inspired by Japanese aesthetics in my life form, through my art in general. Just this sense of simplicity and allowing the work to speak on its own. And I really wanted to create this like minute print. It's not very big, it's around this big in real size. It's quite small, but also quite narrow. And I just thought this is like a sample, but it's obviously a real print of like my large print, but it's showing this delicacy, this captured moment of bubbles and wet sand and this like motion of being underwater. So yes, this is a bit different in style, but also it has its own attention to detail and present the viewer this very sensitive style of bubbles. And moving on to another print I'll show you. It's a series. I might move out again. It's called Restless Current, Turquoise Bay and Rippled Edge. And what excites me is that I'm so focused in the present moment of the creations, as I said before. So, but the process is still yet to develop in time, which the viewer might not know. So therefore I embrace the unknown, this recording of the landscape. There's always something new to see in my work, something to develop, something more to offer. So in effect, I'm working with the properties of nature and just showing different samples and different surroundings in a work. So Restless Current in itself has like a deeper edge to the side, but like lighter tones. I was really inspired by the weather forecast and the motion of cyclones here, and how weather changes and how the works themselves are weather sensitive. So I can't create these works on any day. Some have to be really, they need to have like a high intensity in light, which is quite important, and a continuous intensity. And they're all made in natural sunlight with natural matter. So these three particular prints were really inspired by the weather, as I said. And moving forward, the next print I'll show you is different, but quite similar of previous works I've showed in terms of style. So Swirl in itself shows this way of how nature speaks for me. It has this sense of freedom and the diversity of the unknown. And the paper leaves traces of the presence and the recording of this new reality I create. So you can see there's a sense of energy, and I had to work really quickly and vigorously in this particular print because I remember there was a lot of sand involved, and quite dry sand, but also the dry sand reacts so much differently to the wet sand. And I wanted to create this like mysterious human face, but in the same concept of like abstract work, and trying so hard to have some pieces of sand residue present. And then on the bottom, if you can see over here, I kept the paper, like I dipped in like this really dark Prussian blue with the crystals, and layered it, which was just keeping this sense of enigma. Moving towards the next work, these are two works, again very similar in style. So Grown in the Sea and Deeper Down. I must mention, what fascinates me is that each print has gone through its own life, and there's like a performance involved to achieve all these prints. As I said, I work in a dark room firstly with UV sensitive crystals, then I develop them into, I go on these different walks, collect different matter, or these particular prints in either side of me are created with or directly at the landscape in itself by the sea. So as soon as I create these works, you can, once I create them, I then put it in the seawater. But then I need to be careful how I layered them and when to put them, because sometimes I put it in the seawater and then I layer it again, and then I play around with the transition of time, about sun density and the strength of the sun. And as you may know, there's a time zone of between 11 and 3, the sun is at strongest, and then the evening light, I really try to create different tones. And in this particular piece, I use the evening light as well as the morning light. So these two were a full day mission to create, but also there's this like transition of tonal structure presented in both pieces. Next work I will showcase you. It's also quite different, but the same style. So this one is called Seabed, Unexpected Formation, and the Seahorse. I'll just move out of the screen for you to see. So the sea itself gives this ecstatic feeling of joyness and joyfulness, of energy. And my work simulates itself on the environmental side as well as the scientific level. And I really wanted to show this abstraction, this sense of depth and figure, like different figures. So in Seahorse, as you can see, it looks like a little seahorse swimming in the sea, whereas in Unexpected Formation, this was also inspired by Juan Miró, the Catalan artist. And this particular print again speaks with simplicity, but quite dominant in its way and its depth. Whereas Seabed, I kept a lot of white area and just have this element of darkness and formation at the bottom, shows again, and it speaks to the viewer with its abstraction. And the next work I'll show you is an interesting one, because it's different in tonal structure. And by that I mean the spirit of the sea. You can see there's a really light green, turquoise, blue in colour, which has a different gradient on the side, and then a depth of blue, of Prussian blue, and really dark blue on like the contour. So this print, I'll just move to the side, sorry. This print only developed and changes during certain days, and this again is a very different reaction to the other series of prints, because this particular print falls under the challenge of the weather and this formation of this rare occurrence of the print being this colour. And just to mention that I have this constant collaboration of putting traces from the surroundings onto the paper and imprinting this like mystery, this landscape in an abstract matter, and the spirit of the sea just kind of looked like a mythological creature to me, and just helps me imagine how many different creatures there are in front of me whilst I create the work. So definitely a interesting work to make with its challenges of reaching to this tone, but with different accidents, different processes, I've achieved this really light turquoisey green in colour in this particular print. And then next work I'll showcase is more abstract and more figurative, and these collections are quite diverse. They are different, they're segments of different forms in nature. As I said, I did different research trips at the Kew Gardens archives, as well as the National History Society in Bournemouth, and I was inspired by just taking and extracting different snippets of the surrounding. So these were, again, an early work of mine where I just wanted to see the beauty of nature, what the forms there are, creating this composition. Instead of a bouquet, I did a composition on the work itself, and encapsulating these interesting forms and delicacy of different plants I found. And in this particular print snippet, I was playing around with different tones of blue, and it slid again this more modern and a touch to botany itself, and this knowledge I built up by researching into botany, which really fascinated me and still does to this current day. And tumbling was also quite interesting. If we move on to this particular series, these are three next to each other, you can see. Tumbling was interesting because I was collecting flower buds and plants when they were finished with their life cycle, and drying them and keeping the seeds. And tumbling shows how some people might know, some people don't, but loads of plants migrate through birds, and the migration of birds from cross countries and through their residue. Tumbling really showed how the movement of seeds, and also how these different works and different prints just are created in with different nature or different natural forms. And center in itself was a quite a simple piece where I found this beautiful piece of fern. And the background is quite abstract, but I used a evergreen, as I said previously. What they mean is just how fern is so delicate, but also one note I must mention is that ferns can last quite long in a dark environment. So they don't require much sun. They prefer to grow in the shade. I really wanted to showcase that with this evergreenness, and they pop up generally, and they are they're also an evergreen plant. So yes, this is a particular print showing that. And the next work I'll showcase you is also very similar in style. These fragmentations are carrying on in the works. Here I was trying to really show this sense, this fragility of the print and the flowers and the flora I collect along the sea. So here you can see that it also looks like a rib cage of the plant, and then these are just ideas of what the plants look like. And back to this research trip I took with my friend to Kimmeridge Bay. We went there several times, by the way, not just that one time. And we collected fossils. Like I was so astonished. So I arrived at this beach, gave me a lift very kindly, and we both went to the same uni and had very similar practice. And I was like, wow, there's so many different fossils. And he said, yeah, it's so natural here. So I researched more about it. I was like, right, I am going to create these prints inspired by the different fossils we found. So that's what these are showing, these snippets of the past, something which is ever changing, but it's imprinted in our surroundings, or there's that sense of captured moment. And then the next work I'll show you is now different in style. It's called these particular ones are from my pool series. So they are created from different buds of flower, you can see from here. So very inspired by my ocean stars and such. These were before ocean stars, however. I was just trying to take away like an element of time from nature. And these buds were something which I paused. I paused like the natural element of plants, also how plants evolved and what's created from a bud. And also with pause on the side, pause number 3. And this is like a result of a bud, or what consists of a bud, the flower bud in itself. And I wanted to present it, and it just reminded me of a paused moment in time. And the 2 lines also showcase like a pause button in our lifestyles, and that's what I'm trying to present here. The next piece of work I will show you is quite different in style. This is a more abstract work, and it's called The Odd One, because just to let you know, probably know, but blue light is scattered in all directions by tiny molecules of air in the Earth's atmosphere. And blue is scattered more than any other colours because it travels in shorter wavelengths. And this is why we see like a blue sky most of the time. And also another note, I must say, is like the sea is blue because water absorbs colour, and this red, the red part of the light spectrum. And since everything and all my work linked to our natural surroundings, I think that there's that link of blueness, and just the sense of blue is so evident, as you see in my colour palette and the natural reoccurrence of crystals, that it also has such a strong connection to our nature, our natural surroundings, what we see on a day-to-day, from our light spectrum to the sky, to the sea, to the oceans. So I think there's this really strong element and correlation between the colour and the life cycle of the world around us. The next work I am going to show you is different, and it speaks with itself. because I don't want to frame this work for the exhibition, because I just think I let the boundaries talk. Circular motion as a whole was created with light, as I said, like I use light as a creative medium, translating compositions of the overlooked. This print presents a specific emotion, like a mood and feeling, and this mood which it creates is a personal link to everyone. I really wanted to allow the viewer to see what they see. It has a center point since it's called circular motion, but it doesn't mean that you have to look in the middle. It's something where it allows feelings to arise. Something says depth involved. There's that history. If you know how my prints are made, this performance I had to create to bring it to life. So this transition of moments in time and using light as a medium is very evident and very dark, but in a very mysterious, enigmatic way. So I think this work speaks on its own in itself. It was definitely just creating like this darker side and less white to this creation. But the next print I'm going to show you is 3 prints next to each other. And it's called Merging, Reaching to the Sky, and Milky Way. There's this deep Prussian blue, as I said, which is a depicting colour of the night sky, and it's open to the new aspect of appearance. And Jörg once called this like the new landscape. And this colour blue holds association with the sea and the sky and this phenomena of nature appearing, and this in its most abstract form. So in this particular print, Emerging, I was trying to showcase how different matter I work with merge, how work together, how all these mediums through light, UV sensitive crystals, as well as sand, seawater merge together and create these abstract forms. And then Reaching to the Sky just shows like a limitless print of showing that there's a very similar tonal structure on both sides, and then there's a continuous shape, and it just seems like a cloud like reaching to the sky. And lastly, Milky Way is it just reminded me of the night sky again, just those times when I used to look up to the beach and on the beach, and this whole sky covered with stars. It was so special to me, and I wanted to showcase it in my work itself. And it was a challenge to keep these works quite dark, and I'm always constantly playing with the transition of blue. And this series will lead us to my final piece of this exhibition. I will showcase. So this particular print is called Collision of Sediments. Lastly, as I said, this is my final piece of this exhibition, and it presents the duration of time and the sense of discovery and the sense of curiosity of each work awakening the viewer. And there's this transition, if you can see, there's that transition of moment in time where it's created like that bang and that transitional moment, then finally finishing off with this positioned print. So yes, this concludes to the exhibition, and thank you so much for everyone who has joined. There is going to be as I said at the beginning of the exhibition, there's going to be a quick video which is 6 minutes long of the exhibition without me, which will be uploaded 2 hours from the start of the event. So it will be up maybe in an hour's time, depending on our Q&As. But thank you so much for messaging. I'll read the comments later. But if you are interested to purchase any artwork, there is a catalogue which you can sign to receive. There's my email address in the description below. But also I am very much open to questions. So if you'd like to ask any questions, please do so in the description box next to me. It was definitely a challenge to get this exhibition done, but I really enjoyed the process. I'd like to give a massive thanks to everyone who helped me on this way. And thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, thank you. So I would like to ask, if anyone is up for any questions, please let me know. I'll read the comments. Thank you for the sweet comments on my eyesight. If you have any questions, if not, then it's fine. How I made the works, and I have to say a note. I would like to give a huge thank you to my friend Jade, who I worked with all the typography of this exhibition, all the way from Tahiti. Really kind friend of mine. I have various friends helping me to build this exhibition in itself. Really big thank you to all my team who helped me building my confidence to stand in front of you guys. So no, thank you for everyone, my parents, my friends. Thank you so much for helping me build this show. Okay, someone's asking, can you please tell us about the process of the sea dipping and exposure once again? What is the chemistry in? Yes, that's an interesting question. Thank you, Dasha. So the whole process, as I said, it starts with UV sensitive crystals. So how you have to imagine that I have these two soluble crystals which I mix with water. I'm not going to say the whole recipe. And I coat it in a whole dark, since it's UV sensitive, I have to coat it in a dark room. And I roll it up in a tube, or I have all these different storage units. I gather the works and I take them all on my travels. Yes, so how I create these is, as I said, I create the crystal. I source the crystals, then I mix it with water, and then I coat the paper with a paintbrush. And then also, I must say, I have to then release the paper on the seashore, and then that's when the exposure starts. That's when I have to put all the natural matter on the paper. And then once that's done, and it's duration of time between 1 hour and 9 hours, these works are created. I then create the print itself. And once I'm satisfied with all the different structures which are built on the paper through the help of the sunlight, and also through different various mediums I use, so even the wind partakes. And then once that's done, I then swim with the paper, as simple terms, in the seawater, and then that turns the print blue. And that's how the prints are created. And then it takes a couple of hours for the paper to dry, and then I have to transport it. So yes, it's definitely a long process, but I can tell you, I have friends who find it a bit mad, but I still do it. Any other questions you'd like to ask? Someone said, do you mainly work in the British coast or elsewhere? Well, that's a very interesting question. No, I have worked various locations, various. So from Hungary to Greece, I did a series. These will be upcoming exhibitions. I just wanted to show like my past work, which I've never shown before from the UK. So this particular exhibition shows different styles. And now I also been to Greece recently, where I created a different body of work where it has different reactions, as well as in Hungary. I did a few series in Bali and Indonesia. Various places in the world. Wherever I can take my paper, and I have this tube which I put on my back, and it looks rather weird especially by the passport control. Then yes, I take it wherever I can, really. But no, with a lot of help from friends and family, I try to print wherever is possible. What might you like to do with your work in the future? That's a very interesting question. Thank you, Jane. Well, I'll definitely like to add new colours, new natural pigments I'd like to source from my surroundings. So in my upcoming works, I'd really like to create a really colourful I am quite monochromatic myself, but in a sense that like to involve new colors, which is a surprise, but also with natural plants, with different species, I'd like to create the same process, but through maybe a different color. So yes, it's definitely been a journey, and the whole process in itself is a journey. The whole style process to getting this far, to start from the studio, printing with natural matter, and then taking it to the sea and developing it there. It all comes with experiences and a lot of failure, I tell you. So yes, it's been a pleasure, and thank you so much for everyone who has joined. It really means so much to me that you all listened and partook in my exhibition virtually. It was planned one time ago to be physical, but due to the current situation, I had to quickly, and with the help of my really close friend, we decided to make it virtual and technical. So yes, that's definitely, it was definitely a challenge. Okay, someone said, no, really well done, thank you, very stylish and perfect. Oh, thank you. I asked the dog, the story behind it made it perfect. Oh, thank you, David. Yes, it was definitely, it's something you don't really think of, or or just the animals itself. I mean, I can tell you a whole nother story about seagulls, but let's not go into that. So the positive note is dogs, apart from that one time it decided to run through my print, but it was definitely the moment in time I wasn't laughing. I was actually quite sad, but looking back at it, it's just like so funny that on the whole beach it had to run through my print, my work itself. Any other questions? Oh, thank you so much. When is the next exhibition? Okay. Well, it took 5 months to create this one. Hopefully, I'll speed up and create more in the future. I have plenty of work to show everyone, so I won't have a problem with that. It's just the technical side of me trying to get my head around this whole involvement with tech, really. So I wanted to create something new, something which hasn't really been done, and I still wanted to be present in the exhibition, and just to come up with this concept of showing these works which speak to themselves. They need to be viewed in, they just being viewed one-to-one in a gallery is completely different on the screen. So I had to make it as high resolution as possible with my amazing friends. We managed to do it. So thank you for all the help you gave me, and also putting up, because I created the show, and the amount of times I changed this wall to that wall, and also just the layout of the show, the layout of the gallery itself. You'll see, I'll upload the video after this this live stream of how the gallery looks like without me. And maybe I'll also do another camera angle, because we have to, each artwork, just a side note on the technical side, has its own lighting system. Like it's coded with a camera, which goes around the exhibition. And yes, it was definitely a challenge of hidden gems, and also thank you so much for all the involvement and excitement, because definitely, I must say, a few days ago I wasn't this confident as today. I was feeling quite nervous, and thank you for all the love and being part of my first virtual exhibition. So just to reply to your question, Dasha, thank you for asking and being so eager to know when's the next one. I'm planning to create another exhibition in the new year, maybe in late winter or midwinter. Maybe after January or February. We'll see. We'll see where the world takes us. Maybe it won't have to be virtual, but it's also great that it also includes all my friends, family, strangers around the world to join us today. It's really special that we can all be in this one space of the internet and experience this together. So thank you so much for joining in. It really meant so much to me. Any other questions you'd like to ask? Let me just read. It's just, I'm sorry, my eyesight. Thank you so much, Rosie. Thank you. Uh, Looking forward to the seagull stories. Oh gosh, yes. So basically, okay, I'll tell you just shortly. So in my apartment, as I said, I lived by the coastline. Um, I I looked like a weirdo because I used to carry. I mean, you can ask my friends. I used to carry all these works on with me wherever I traveled to, and there was this one particular seagull which sat in front of my like flat apartment, um, and it used to stare itself in the mirror in reflection, and I called it Pluto because it was reoccurring, and it kept coming back, and just it was so vain. It was just looking at itself. And then I was just like, I wish all seagulls would be this funny, just having their own little time and staring at themselves at the window. And there was this one time I just got out of my apartment, walked down to the shore to create another set of work, and the seagull was there. And I was like, oh, that's calm. And then I go to the actual shore, and there are plenty of seagulls everywhere. And I was like, oh my gosh, these seagulls will be scared of me and they'll fly away. But no, I had my snacks and they've attacked all my bag. They took my snacks away. There was just chaos. I was just like, anything, just don't bite the paper. And they didn't in the end. I just threw them away, but they did take my snacks. So yes, the seagulls are quite nosy creatures. So that's the seagull story. Any other questions? Any more serious questions? Um, Thank you so much for all the kind messages. Really sweet. I'll scroll up later on after this exhibition has finished. But thank you so much for everyone, and thank you so much for joining. And a massive thank you again to everyone who joined. Thank you. Goodbye.